should be Chapter 2, Passing of the Grey Company. And if I remember correctly, we have today and Thursday, yes, to do Return of the King. So expect a quiz definitely on Thursday. So the Passing of the Grey Company. Okay, so what have we seen so far? We've got Frodo and Sam where? Heading to Mordor. They're not there yet. Okay. Actually, we've got Frodo and Sam, let's say, Tirith Ungol. Okay. We have Gandalf and Pippin where? Minas Tirith. Okay. We have Boromir, still dead. Aragorn, Legolas, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. Okay, that's what we're getting to right now in this passage. Okay, notice Pippin is there. Merry's with them still, but Tolkien's going to even break that up. So we're going to have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli go off somewhere, and Merry's not going to be with them. Okay? So the Passing of the Grey Company. The Dunedain of the North come into the scene, pages 774, 75, and Halbarad brings a gift, bottom of 775, from Arwen to Aragorn, and also words. And the words are, the days are short, if thou art in haste, remember the paths of the dead. And Aragorn says, no, I think I can wait a little bit longer before I take those paths. And then towards the bottom of that page, Aragorn asks, what is that you bear? Because Halbarad's carrying something in his arms. He says, it is a gift that I bring you from the Lady of Rivendell. She wrought it in secret, and long was the making, but she also sends words to you. The days now are short. Yeah, he heard that just a minute or so earlier. Either our hope cometh, or all hopes end. Therefore I send thee what I have made for thee. Farewell, Elfstone. Okay, when she says, our hope cometh, that hour has two referents, or two things that it is referring to. One is the collective hour. Everybody's hope comes, okay, or all hopes end, or Sauron wins and we all die. And it has a more narrow hour. Who's the more narrow hour that it is referring to? Louder? Arwen and Aragorn. How do you know?
Because they're a thing that they don't want or don't think they should. He doesn't think they should be yet. But she's like, yeah, I don't care about the wolf, man.
50% right. They are a quote-unquote thing, an item. I talked about this the other day. What must Aragorn do before he can marry Arwen?
Defeat Sauron.
He's got to defeat Sauron and become king of Gondor. Okay. Little thing. What's the thing Halbarad is carrying? Standard of the king. Okay. She's kind of saying, you've got to raise this, or our hopes end. We will never achieve our goal, in other words. And he goes, okay, I know what you have. Keep it hidden.
What is that, a banner?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a banner of the white tree of Gondor. Only one person can fly this banner. Well, the banner holder.
It's got the 7 stars.
Yeah.
Which makes it different from
Okay. So, this thing gets unfurled, and what does that mean?
King's home.
Or the king's back and coming. Yeah, one of those two. Okay. So, Page 777, we have Mary talking with Eomer and others. And at the bottom of the page, Mary offers his sword to Theoden. Okay. Middle of the page, Theoden says to we'll get the name in a moment. Theoden says to Mary, brains working faster than my mouth, you shall be my esquire, if you will. Is there gear of war in this place, Eomer, that my sword thane could use? He says, well, we might be able to find something for him. Mary says, I have a sword. He gets up from his seat, he draws it from its black sheath, and filled suddenly with love for this old man, he knelt on one knee, took his hand, and kissed it. May I lay the sword of Meriadoc of the Shire on your lap, Theoden King. Receive my service if you will. Well, we've already seen another hobbit do this. Pippin to Denethor. Gladly will I take it, says the king. Rise now, Meriadoc, esquire of Rohan of the household of Meduseld. Take your sword and bear it unto good fortune. As a father you shall be to me, Theoden, for a little while. Is Theoden planning on suicide? No. What's he planning on? Going to ride forth into battle. What does he think is going to happen there? Yeah, he's going to die. Okay. Notice how he's not going to ride into battle. He's not going to ride at the rear of his troops. That's not a good Anglo-Saxon warrior mentality, which is what Theoden has. Okay? So, Pippin swears fealty to to the Lord of Gondor. It's not Denethor per se, it's the office. And Mary swears fealty to the King of Rohan. So that in later days, long after the events of this, if the King of Rohan or the Lord of Gondor requires Mary or Pippin, respectively, they've got to go down. 778-79. Aragorn tells them, Theoden, Eomer, etc., what journey he has to take. Top of 779. Aragorn says, by your leave, Lord, I must take new counsel for myself and my kindred. We must ride our own road and no longer in secret. For me, the time of stealth has passed. I will ride east by the swiftest way, and I will take the paths of the dead. Theoden, he trembles, notice. The paths of the dead. Why do you speak of them? Eomer turned and gazed at Aragorn, and it seemed to Mary that the faces of the riders that sat within hearing turned pale at the words. If there be in truth such paths, says Theoden, their gate is in Dunharrow, but no living man may pass it. Okay? That is, if they're not a fairy tale, you can't go through there. Why? Because they're the paths of the dead. Only the dead walk those paths. Aragorn, that's mine. I say to you, Eomer, that in battle we may yet meet again, though all the hosts of Mordor should stand between. What does he mean? You're going to have Minas Tirith here. Okay. You're going to have out here are what are called the Pelennor fields. Okay. And there's a rock wall kind of surrounding them. The river Anduin rolls like this. Aragorn's going to say, essentially saying, next time I see you, I'm going to be here. You're going to be here. Here, all the armies of Sauron. And they're kind of like, all right, see you later, Aragorn. Farewell. Good luck. And that's when those three go off, and Mary is now left alone with Theoden. Skip a little bit, and page 780. don't usually talk about this, but I need to more. Aragorn reveals to Legolas and Gimli that he's done something. Very top of the page. Legolas says, "Speak and be comforted. Take off the shadow. What has happened since we came back to this grim place in the grey morning?" Aragorn, "Struggle somewhat grimmer for my part than the battle of the Hornburg. I have looked in the stone of Orthanc." Gimli, "You have looked in that accursed stone of wizardry? Did you say aught to him? Even Gandalf feared that encounter." What does he mean by even Gandalf feared that encounter? Yeah. But what about the even Gandalf? You could almost put, even Gandalf feared that encounter, comma, and you're not Gandalf. That's what he means. Gandalf now is what? Gandalf the White. I mean, he has risen way up in their understanding of him. And he's saying, who do you think you are? "You forget to whom you speak," said Aragorn sternly. Back off, Gimli. And his eyes glinted. Remember what I said about when somebody's eyes glint? There's anger there. In other words, puny little dwarf. "What do you fear that I should say to him? You don't trust me, Gimli? You think I'm going to give us away? Did I not openly proclaim my title before the doors of Edoras?" Actually, he did it long before the doors of Edoras. When did he openly proclaim his title?
No, to the hobbits in the inn way back after they left the Shire. First time?
Kind of, at Prancing Pony, but he doesn't do it the way I'm thinking of.
Oh.
When he stands up in the middle of the pasture, the riders ride by, and he asks them, "What news of the North riders are rowing?" Amir says, "Who are you?" After Amir, and he talked a little bit, he says, throwing off his cloak, pulling out his sword, "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elfstone, Elistar, Dunadan." He's laying out his lineage. He's saying there, "I'm the future king of Gondor. Here. Did I not openly proclaim my title before the days of Edoras? Nay, Gimli." And now he kind of comes down a little bit. "Nay, my friends, I am the lawful master of the stone." Why? Louder? Because he's the heir. Why else? I mean, it is that. He's the heir to the kingdom of Gondor. That stone, the stone of Orthanc, was made by whom? His ancestors, the men of Westernessa. All the stones, in that sense, legally belong to him. Okay? Because he's the king, not only of Gondor, the future king, I should say. Not only of Gondor, he's also the future king of the kingdom of the North. "I am the lawful master of the stone, and I had both the right and the strength to use it, or so I judged. Right cannot be doubted. Strength, it was a bitter struggle, and the weariness is slow to pass. I spoke no word to him, and in the end, I wrenched the stone to my own will." Okay? So what does that mean? He wrenched the stone to his own will. See, the Palantir works according to the strength of the person who's looking into it. That's why when Pippin looked into it, he couldn't see necessarily what he could have wanted to see. If he knew how the stone worked, he could have kind of thought to himself, "Show me, another stone." Or even, "Show me the Shire." Okay? But he doesn't have that strength. Pretty much anybody who looks into it, except for Aragorn, what do they see? Or, let me put it this way, what are they allowed to see? Exactly what Sauron wants them to see. Because Sauron has one. We're going to find out a little bit later. There's one in the White Tower of Minas Tirith. Denethor has been looking into one. Denethor sees only what Sauron allows him to see. And he thinks that what he sees is what? What do people think they see when they turn on the news on television?
Bad things.
Okay, that's what we expect to see. Truth. They think the news is quote unquote true. But everything you see on TV is what? Edited. It's all edited. Sauron is editing the video reel that he allows Denethor to see. So what does Denethor see? I know I'm jumping way forward. He sees Sauron's endless armies. Okay? It's propaganda, in other words.
It's an endless loop.
Yeah, it's an endless loop, essentially. What does Aragorn then do, he says? He wrenched the stone to his will. He took that stone, and what that stone did, away from Sauron. See, when Saruman looked into the stone, what did he see? What Sauron wanted him to see. He says, that alone he will find hard to endure. And he beheld me. That is, Sauron's sitting there thinking, how the hell did he do that? How did he take the stone's controls away from me? But then Aragorn adds, and he beheld me. Did he behold Aragorn as Strider from the north? No. Yes, Master Gimli, he saw me, but in other guise than you see me here. If that will aid him, then I have done ill, but I don't think so. How did he see Aragorn? Did he have his valet with him and say, okay, pull out the kingly clothes? Let me show him with my ermine coat and crown. And how did he see him, though? No, not as an ordinary man.
As the once and future king.
Bingo. And what do you think Aragorn showed him? The eyes in Orthanc did not see through the armor of Theoden, but Sauron has not forgotten Isildur and the sword of Elendil. Now, in the very hour of his great designs, the heir of Isildur and the sword are revealed. For I showed the blade reforged to him. In other words, he went, remember this? And Sauron saw him the way, probably, Legolas saw him when he said to Éomer, for I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elisar, Elfstone, Dunedain. In other words, and he saw him with that little light on his forehead, the future king. So now what's going on in Sauron's mind?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, great. Now I've got the ancestor of the one who lopped my finger off to deal with. And he has the sword that, wait, that sword was broken. And now it's reforged. Now, in the very hour of his great designs, the heir of Isildur and the sword are revealed. He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear. Nay, doubt ever gnaws him. Gimli, yeah, but now he's going to strike more swiftly. Aragorn, that's the point. He forced him to do what? Aragorn forced Sauron to do what? Speed up his plans. To strike.
Irrationally?
Exactly. Strike before he has everything set in place. The hasty strike, Aragorn says, oft goes oft astray. Now we have to press our enemy. No longer wait upon him for the move. In other words, now we're going to bring the battle to him. We're going to put him on the defensive. Okay. What are we talking about here? You know, in our world terms, what is Sauron's army like compared to real world armies? It'd be like China's. I mean, China's got what, 1.5 billion people? It's got a regular standing army of, I don't know what it is. It's something like 2 million men.
A million-man army standing.
The American army has what? Tops?
Roughly 760,000 active personnel.
Probably, in how many forces though? That's probably across. That's not just the army.
Oh no, it's like Navy,
Yeah.
Air Force, all that.
That's all the armed forces. China, we're talking just the army, not including Navy, Air Force, etc. Okay? So Sauron has this huge army. What does Aragorn have? 50. But he does have, crown, seemingly, not the literal crown, and the sword. So he says, we've got to attack him where he doesn't expect it. Where does Sauron not expect it? Well, he's not expecting somebody to necessarily attack these guys from the river. Why? Because he's bought everybody on the south side of the river. He controls those troops. They're essentially satellites of his. So, Aragorn says, I've got to take the paths of the dead. 781. Gimli. It's a fell name. That is a fearsome, terrible name. Little to the liking of the men of Rowan. Can the living use such a road and not perish? And even if you do, what will so few avail to counter the strokes of Mordor? Even if we do get through there, he says, what are we, and those riders that come with us, going to do against the forces of Mordor that are going to attack Minas Tirith? Aragorn. The living have never used that road since the coming of the Rohirrim. That is, that road, the Paths of the Dead, was created before the Rohirrim even came into Rowan from wherever they came from. Right? So Legolas finally says, what were the words of the seer? Explain those. So Aragorn recounts the saying, over the land there lies a long shadow, westward reaching wings of darkness. The tower trembles to the tombs of kings. Doom approaches. The dead awaken. For the hour is come for the oath breakers. In the stone of Eric they shall stand again. At the stone of Eric. And hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Who shall the horn be? Who shall call them from the gray twilight, the forgotten people? The heir of him to whom the oath they swore. From the north shall he come, need shall drive him. He shall pass the door to the paths of the dead. Gimli. Okay. What does that mean? Aragorn. You want to understand them better? Come with me. Notice he doesn't say, okay, Gimli, sit down. I'm going to talk about what this poem means. Let's take it apart. Look at the verse. Look at the meter. No. He says, if you want to understand, you got to come with me. Gimli, I'll go with you. Okay? Then who else questions him about the paths of the dead? And why? Next couple pages, 783. They get back to Helm's, not back to Helm's Deep. They come to Dunharrow, where Galadriel and the children and the infirm and the aged are. And she says, tomorrow you're going to have better housing. Don't worry. Tonight you just get this essentially tent. And he says, no, don't worry about us. Tomorrow we got to go first light. And he tells her where. Middle of 783. She says, now you're going the wrong way. For out of Harrowdale, okay, Dale, Valley, Harrow, what does that mean? Harrow. You might have, well, you probably wouldn't have, because it's no longer used in the church. You might have used, if you go to church, you might have heard sometime of what's called the harrowing of hell. It's when Christ, when he dies, goes into hell to redeem those that are already in hell. Okay? According to the Orthodox and Catholic churches, he goes down to hell, breaks open the gates, and says, I'm the Son of God. Any of you accept that, follow me. Okay? And a bunch leave. Adam, Moses, Noah, Samson, all those quote-unquote righteous of the Old Testament. It's not hell, burning flames and fire. It's the place of the dead before final judgment at that point, right?
Purgatory?
So, no, not purgatory. Purgatory is entirely different. So, harrowing or harrow is to essentially scare the daylights out of, kind of. She's kind of saying, nothing comes out of that place. You go in there, you don't come back. Finally, she says, okay, right in the middle of the page. Is it then your errand to seek death? That's what you're going to find on that road. He says, no, they may suffer me to pass. But at the least I will adventure it. I will try it. No other road will serve. This is madness, Eowyn says. Here are men of renown. That is, the riders from the north. Here are men of renown and prowess, whom you should not take into the shadows, but should lead to war. Why does she have renown before prowess? Renown simply means fame, glory, reputation. These are great warriors, famous warriors, and they have great abilities. She emphasizes their glory before their ability. She says, come on, stay here, ride with my brother, and then we'll all be happy. That is, until we all die. He says, it is not madness, lady, for I go on a path appointed. Remember Frodo, as they get to the dead marshes, he asks Gollum, how is our path shaped? And then when we get to Cirith Ungol, he says, for this is how our path is laid. Aragorn is saying, this is my destiny. I am born to walk this path. But those who follow me do so of their own free will. That is, I'm not making Halbrand come with me. I'm not making Legolas and Gimli come with me. They don't have to. If I go by myself, I'll go by myself. Okay? They say no more. They eat in silence. And she comes back. Top of 784. Why? Why do you take this road? Notice he doesn't lay out the strategy for her. Why not? Doesn't have to. It's none of her damn business. Okay? Does she know he's the future king of Gondor? Not quite clear whether she knows that or not. He says simply, because I must. Only so can I see any hope of doing my part in the war against Sauron. In other words, only by this road can I have an effect. I do not choose paths of peril, Eowyn. He says, if I were to go where I wanted to go, that is, if I followed my desire, I'd be up in Rivendell. Why? Because Arwen's not down in Lothlorien. She's in Rivendell. She's wondering, well, what's up there? You are stern and lord and resolute. If you're going to go, let me come with you. Your duty's with your people. Duty. Too often have I heard of duty. Am not I of the house of Eorl a shield maiden and not a dry nurse? I have waited on faltering feet long enough. Since they falter no longer, she's talking about Theoden, her uncle. Since they falter no longer, it seems, may I not now, what's the next word? Spend my life as I will. How do we usually use this word?
Kind of use up.
Used up. You spend money for what? You buy a car, you buy a computer, you buy a book, etc. What happens to the money?
It goes away.
Yeah, in terms of your possession, it dissolves. There's nothing left. In other words, it's used. It's gone. What is she saying? May I not use up my life as I will. May I not, as with money, give it away as I will. Will, there. Choose, desire. Aragorn. Few may do that with honor. What's he mean? He's talking about giving away your life, using it up. Few may do that with honor. He's saying suicide, because that's what that means, how she's using it. There's no honor there. The few, this is an example of an Old English literary technique called litotes. It's understatement. How many is few? 0. 0 hero can do that with honor. Why? Well, as for you, lady, did you not accept the charge to govern the people until their Lord's return? Before Theoden left, before they did the march on Isengard, Eowyn agreed to be in charge of the people that remained behind. He is saying, did you not receive, let's use the military language, did you not receive a commission to protect these? And if you hadn't been chosen, then some marshal or captain would have been set in the same place. And he could not ride away from his charge, were he weary of it or no. Notice how he puts that. He couldn't ride away from his charge. What's he saying that is? This is Tolkien's discussion in the fairy story essay of escape as being the difference between the flight of the deserter and the flight of the prisoner, or the escape of the prisoner. He's saying, if you leave your charge, you're what? You are deserting your duty. So shall I always be chosen, she said bitterly. In other words, it's always me. Shall I always be left behind when the riders depart, to mind the house while they win renown, and find food and beds when they return? What's her problem? What's the chip on her shoulder?
She started being a housewife.
Okay. Is she a housewife?
Not really.
No, she's just being left behind.
Okay.
She wants to fight.
She wants to fight.
Well, she's a shield maker, right? So that means she's
That's what she says she is.
Oh, okay.
She says she is. Okay. Why does she want to fight? She's going to tell us in just a few moments. She's not going to tell us overtly. She's going to say it kind of subtly. Aragorn. So notice what she said there. And why am I always the one chosen to mind the house and the beds for when they return? Aragorn. The time may come soon when none will return. Okay, so stop and think about that. What's he mean? We might lose these battles, and you'll be left back here. Then there will be need of valor without renown. Meaning what?
She would have to tell the story.
Yeah. Then there will be a great need for valor, bravery, courage, without the possibility of anyone living to tell how brave and courageous you were. What's braver? To do some great deed knowing somebody's up back there writing it all down, to tell your story, to tell your legend, or to do some great deed knowing nobody will ever know. And you will not be remembered. See, that one's a lot harder than the first one. For none shall remember the deeds that are done in the last defense of your homes. Yet the deeds will not be less valiant because they are unpraised. How does she interpret what Aragorn just said? All your words are but to say, you are a woman and your part is in the house. Okay? Think of what he said earlier. If you weren't chosen, some other marshal or captain would have been chosen. And if the battle was still lost, they would be the ones who would still have to show great valor or courage, even though nobody would ever know about it. Is Aragorn talking about male, female roles? No. What's he talking about? Honor, duty, integrity to some extent. She says, but when the men have died in battle and honor, you have leave to be burned in the house, for the men will need it no more. Okay, that's what she's interpreting Aragorn is saying. Because the heroes won't come back, it doesn't really matter if the house gets torched and everybody inside dies. What does that say about her attitude for those who are left behind? they're expendable, no honor, they're unimportant. In other words, use modern world language, the only people who are really important are all those soldiers, airmen, sailors, etc. out right now. Us, we don't matter. In other words, defending the homeland, what is in the homeland is unimportant. It's only those who are standing at the ready. I am of the house of a earl and not a serving woman. I can ride and wield blade. I do not fear pain or death. Most important word in that little passage, serving. What is she tired of doing? Serving. Who does she want to serve? Herself. Okay? So he finally asks, well, what do you fear then? A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire. I don't wear them because my finger's swollen. A ring? Is that what she means by a cage? Gender roles? Is that what she means by cage? Aragorn. And yet you counseled me not to adventure on the road that I had chosen because it's perilous. Notice she says, I don't fear pain or death. Right? She says, I want to go do great deeds while I'm able to. Aragorn. And you told me not to do what I have to do. So may one counsel another, yet I do not bid you flee from peril, but to ride to battle where your sword may win, again, look what comes first, renown and victory. Shouldn't victory come first all the time? Shouldn't glory be a secondary aspect of having won? I would not see a thing that is high and excellent cast away needlessly. Neither would I, says Aragorn. Therefore, stay. Okay? So, Aragorn and the others go off. They go through the paths of the dead, and the dead follow them. We get chapter 3, the muster of Rowan. Who wants to go, but Theoden won't let him? Mary. Okay? Page 802. Farewell now, Master Meriadoc. Yet maybe we shall meet again, you and I. And 804. Mary wants to go. Theoden again says no. Middle of the page. A rider comes up to Mary and says, where a will once not, a way opens, so we say. And so I have found myself. Mary looks up. Sees that it's the young rider he noticed earlier in the morning. You wish to go whither the Lord of the Mark goes? I see it in your face. I do. Then you shall go with me, says the rider. I'll bear you before me under my cloak until we are far afield. Thank you, sir, but I do not know your name. Do you not? Call me Dernhelm. Dernhelm. Helm is Old English for protector. A helmet is a head protector. Okay? Dern simply means secret or hidden. Secret protector, hidden protector. And here, who is Dernhelm the secret or hidden protector of? Mary. Right? Because where's Mary? Hidden under the cloak. Now, this is one of the stupid things they do in the film. Because who do you know Dernhelm is at this point? Eowyn. Okay. They completely remove the suspense, the surprise, the eucatastrophe that Tolkien creates for us. So we get the Siege of Gondor. I'm going to skip a bunch. Faramir shows up. He sees Pippin and goes, wow, another halfling. Saw one of those not too long ago. Gandalf's like, win. Top of 812. Win, Faramir, win. When would they have reached, he says, that accursed valley, that is Cirith Ungol? He says, I parted with them in the morning 2 days ago. 15 leagues hence. They're probably just about there now. Okay? So, Faramir is he questioned by his father or is he interrogated by his father? Yeah, it's more interrogated. Page 813, Denethor says to Faramir, I wish you and your brother's places were exchanged. Wish you died, not Boromir. That's kind of hard to hear from dear old dad. And Faramir says, okay, remember why it was that I was an Ithilien and not him. Okay? So Gandalf gives Denethor a little advice. Denethor doesn't take it. We're going to skip a bit. Page 816. Denethor tells Faramir to go bolster the defense, the garrison at Osgiliath. Osgiliath is back here. It's a bridge city over the river, and it protects Minas Tirith and Gondor from Mordor. If they lose that, then the forces of Gondor can overtake the Pelennor fields. Bottom of 816. Aragorn says, I do not oppose your will, sire. Since you are robbed of Boromir, I will go and do what I can in his stead, if you command it. I do. If I should return, think better of me. Denethor, that depends on the manner of your return. What does he mean? Supposedly, what did old Spartan wives say to their husbands when they went off to battle? Return with your shield or on it. With your shield means in victory. On your shield, dead. Don't return, losers. And Gandalf says to Faramir before he leaves, don't give up. Do not throw your life away rashly or in bitterness. What was Aragorn just talking to Eowyn about? Spending her life as she willed. Okay? You will be needed here for other things than war. Your father loves you, Faramir, and will remember it ere the end. Okay? Faramir goes out. Page 818. We find out the wall is taken. All right. Bottom of 818, Gandalf tells Denethor that the captain of the Nine, the lord of the Nazgul, the witch king of Angmar, is outside the city gates. King of Angmar long ago, sorcerer, ringwraith, lord of the Nazgul, spear of terror in the hand of Sauron, shadow of despair. Denethor, then Mithrandir you had a foe to match you. He says, I have long known who this was. Is that all you've returned to tell me? Okay, we're going to skip some more. Faramir is brought in, wounded, page 821. He lays on his bed in the chamber of the White Tower, 823, desperate fever and such, page 825. Messengers come to the White Tower. They tell Denethor, the first circle of the city is burning. Remember, there are 7. Each one is higher and smaller than the one before. Denethor says, top of 825, why do the fools fly? Better to burn sooner than late, for burn we must. And he has Faramir taken to the halls of the dead. Okay, notice what he just said. Better to burn sooner than later, for burn we must. What does he mean?
We're all going to die, might as well do it sooner.
We're all going to die. Might as well do it sooner. What's another way of putting that? May as well die at our own hands. That is, rather than let them kill us, we kill ourselves. Okay? So, he says farewell to Pippin. He says, I release you. Pippin, no, you don't. He goes, whatever. Do as you will, Master Halfling. So, Pippin sends for his servants as he's called. He also goes down and he tells Baragon about it. Let's see here. Page 827. A man asks, who is the master of Minas Tirith? The Lord Denethor or the Grey Wanderer? Pippin says, Grey Wanderer, or no one. Okay? So Pippin tells Baragon what's going on with Denethor. Baragon does what? Leaves his post. Is this the flight of the deserter? No. He runs up to where Denethor is. Pippin goes down to find Gandalf. And he finds Gandalf. He's at the lowest level of the city. He's at the gates that have never been breached. Page 829. Grond is banging on the gates, the big battering ram. And we get in 829. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul. A great black shape against the fires beyond, he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all fled before his face, all save one. There waiting, silent and still, in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth endured the terror. You cannot enter here, says Gandalf. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. It's like he's replaying his greatest hits. Bridge of Khazad-dûm, track 1. Go back, fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. Black Rider flings back his hood, and there's a crown, but no head. Just like, The red fire shone between it and the mantled shoulders, vast and dark. So there's a crown and flame. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. Old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. Lift his sword, flames run up, cue the special effects. The die now and curse in vain, it's almost an exact passage from the Old Testament book of Job. Job's wife tells him, die now and curse God in vain. Okay? And what happens? Gandalf just sits there. Shadowfax just sits there. And off in the distance, somewhere in Minas Tirith, some damn rooster doesn't know all hell's about to break loose. Because the rooster does what? Well, the sun just came up. What is that? Dawn of a new age? Age of Aquarius? No. What is it? Hope. It's a little natural eucatastrophe. The rooster is saying, not tritely, the sun will always come up tomorrow. But the rooster is kind of saying, the natural world is what? Still going about its natural world business. It's not paying any attention to this old geezer who thinks he's going to rule the world. So we hear the and then from another point, what do you hear? The horns of Rowan. And the Black Rider turns around because he's thinking, wait a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. And we get the Ride of the Rohirrim. So we skip a bunch, skipping all the stuff about the Woses, the wild men of the wood and such. And chapter 6, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Okay? Theoden rides in to battle, sweeps out his sword. Okay? When the riders blow their horns, the captain of the 9 leaves. He rides out to battle. And Theoden, page 840, when dark falls about him, why does it get dark all of a sudden around him? Eclipse?
I mean,
Well, kind of.
a giant bird like swoops on him.
Yeah, it's a giant. We don't know exactly what the Nazgul are, but they're dragonish-like creatures. They don't breathe flame, but they're large and they're reptilian-like, and they have leathery wings. Okay, so they're non-fire-breathing dragons of a sort. This thing blocks the sun. Okay, around Theoden. Theoden cries, to me, fear no darkness, but his horse isn't Shadowfax. And the horse is deadly afraid, rears up, falls, and he falls on top of Theoden. Not necessarily entirely on top, but at least one leg is pinned. And the great shadow descends, page 840, descends like a falling cloud, and behold, it was a winged creature, if bird, then greater than all others, and it was naked, neither quill nor feather did it bear, its vast pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers, and it stank. Between horned fingers, it almost sounds like a pterodactyl. Okay? Creature of an older world, maybe it was, etc., etc. And on it sat a shape, black-mantled, huge and threatening. A crown of steel he bore, but between rim and robe, naught was there to see, Lord of the Nazgul. He wields his big old black mace, and we find out Theoden is not alone. Got a bunch of dead knights around him, but there's also Durnhelm and Merry. Merry's on the ground, and he's thinking to himself, Kingsman, you must stay by him. As a father you shall be to me, he said. But his will made no answer, and his body shook. He's thinking that, but his body's going, hell no, I'm not getting up. Then out of the blackness in his mind, he hears Durnhelm. Begone, foul Dwemer Lake, Lord of Kerry, and leave the dead in peace. And the voice answers, come not between the Nazgul and his prey. That is, the Nazgul is the flying thing. And it's going to eat Theoden and the horse, and probably the dead knights. Or he will not slay thee in thy turn, he will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool, no living man may hinder me. Surprise! Which you don't have in the film version, because you already know this isn't a living man. No living man am I. You look upon a woman, Eowyn, I am Eowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Begone if you be not deathless, for I will smite you if you touch him. And real quickly, you stand between me and my lord and kin. In pagan Germanic literature, according to a British scholar named C.L. Wren in a book called A Study of Old English, okay, he says there is this thing that he calls the fourfold Germanic ethic. Fourfold because it has 4 elements to it. First, second, third, fourth. Okay? The first one, you have a duty to your Lord. Second, you have a duty to your kin. Third, you have a duty to avenge your Lord. To avenge the Lord and kin. And 4, you have this trust in what's called weird or fate. In other words, what will be, will be. You can't change it, you just accept it. Okay? So notice, and these are kind of in order of importance. Duty to your Lord, that is your king or your chieftain. Okay? Duty to your kin, that is to your family. Duty to avenge your Lord and kin. Notice what Eowyn has here. You got all three of those. Theoden is her lord. Theoden is her kin. Theoden, she thinks, is dead. Duty to avenge him. She can't back away from this. This fourfold ethic is what creates some problems in the Old English epic Beowulf. Because you have people who live entirely by this. What do they always end up doing with their enemies? It's a never-ending battle. Because there's no other way outside this system. It always ends up with one side annihilating the other side. It's the only way you achieve peace. Right? This is an element showing us really how, quote-unquote, Germanic Tolkien wants us to understand the writers of Rowan as. Okay? So the winged creature screams at her, and she just stands there. And what happens?
She gets back by a mace.
Yeah, I'm skipping a little bit. So the beast beats its wings. It tries to come down near her. She lops its head off. Page 842. Now the Black Rider's pissed. You killed my dog, essentially. Big black riding dog, but still. And with a cry of hatred that stung the very ears like venom, he let fall his mace. Page 842. She stumbled to her knees. Her shield was shivered in many pieces. Her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over her like a cloud. His eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. What's a mace look like? It's essentially a wooden or metal object. And what's it have on the end?
Metal, like.
Yeah, like a ball. Okay? Sometimes they have spikes. Sometimes they have like knobs. Okay? Like if you've ever used an exercise roller ball that's knobbly to work out, tight muscles and stuff.
Wasn't it like designed to like crush the guy inside the armor?
Yeah. You swing one of those against even breastplate armor, and it just crushes the chest. You hit somebody in the head, there is no head. The ball replaces where the head was essentially. Okay? So, he swings this thing. She's got her arm up in the shield, shatters the shield, okay, and her arm. And he comes forward, but suddenly he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain as his stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Merry's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk. It had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. Now, if you've ever had excruciating knee pain, you get a little idea of what this feels like. He stabs him right there in the back of the knee, severing, assuming the ring wraith has ring wraithly ligaments and tendons and such. And the Black Rider falls forward onto his knees. What does Eowyn do? She just holds her sword up with her one good arm, and he falls and impales himself on it through the neck and gone. Why is he gone? Two reasons. Merry's sword and Eowyn's sword. She's no living man. Merry's sword, where'd he get it? Tom Bombadil, the Barrow Wight, the sword that was forged specifically for battle against the Witch King of Angmar.
So did she have like Pippin's sword?
No, she has her own.
Oh, I don't remember where she got it.
She has her own sword.
Okay.
It's just a regular sword. Go to
Okay.
Dick's and, swords off the wall or whatever. Or maybe not
I
Dick's,
didn't
but
think those swords could like hurt the asshole.
yeah, the reason her sword has power, because she's not a man. It's it. Okay? See, he interprets, no living man may hinder me. He interprets that as a regular man, as gendered language. And she says, not me. He interprets that as being solely referring to men. She says, not me. Okay? It doesn't apply to me. So, what happens to Merry and Eowyn as a result of this? Eowyn, she's out. Okay? Theoden says a few last words to Mary, bottom of 842. And Mary says some words to him. Theoden says, top of 843, live now in blessedness, and when you sit at peace with your pipe, think of me, think of Metacel, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So he dies, Éomer goes battle crazy. Okay? And we see Theoden brought in honor. We see Éowyn brought in honor. What about Mary? 845. Slowly and sadly, Mary walked beside the bears. He gave no more heed to the battle. All right? Chapter 7, Pyre of Denethor. Meanwhile, back at the top of the city, what's Denethor doing?
This burnt son alive.
Getting ready to light the match. Okay? The rider leaves the gate. Pippin tells Gandalf, Mr. Gandalf, Mr. Gandalf, Denethor's about to kill Faramir. It's like, great. So he goes off to the north, to the top of the city. And he talks with Denethor and Denethor's servants. Gandalf stops them from lighting the funeral pyre. And what does Denethor reveal? Palantir. I know exactly what's going on. There is no victory. Okay. Gandalf jumps up, takes Faramir away. Denethor lights himself. Page 854. Gandalf asks Denethor, okay, say you could have your wish. What would you want? Come on, tell me. Top of that page. I would have things as they were in all the days of my life and in the days of my long fathers before me, to be the lord of the city in peace, leave my chair to a son after me who would be his own master and the wizard's pupil. But if doom denies this to me, then I will have not. Gandalf. It would seem to me it would not seem that a steward who faithfully surrenders his charge is diminished in love or in honor. And at the least, you shall not rob your son of his choice while his death is still in doubt. And he says, Denethor says, there is no doubt. Right? And I forgot to, real briefly, see if I can find this quickly. There's a passage I should have discussed earlier. When Gandalf is talking with Denethor, it's actually in the chapter we finished the other day.
So Denethor just stayed on the table wording for that?
Yeah. Page 758, very quickly. And this is in the first chapter, Ministerial. Gandalf and Denethor are talking. This was after Pippin has given his recounting of what's occurred. And Denethor says, in response to Gandalf, I've been sent, but Gandalf says, do you think I do not understand your purpose in questioning for an hour one who knows the least while I sit by? Denethor, wilt you understand to be content? And to him there is no, the Lord of Gondor, to him there is no purpose higher in the world as it now stands than the good of Gondor, the rule of Gondor, my lord, is mine and no other man's, unless the king should come again. Denethor is essentially saying, I'm the one in charge of Gondor. Okay? Unless the king should come again. Gandalf, unless the king should come again. Well, my lord steward, notice what Gandalf just did. Yeah, he adds the word steward because Denethor keeps forgetting that part. He speaks of himself as Lord of Gondor. Gandalf reminds him, you are the Lord Steward of Gondor. Well, my lord steward, it is your task to keep some kingdom still against that event, which few now look to see. In that task you shall have all the aid that you are pleased to ask for. But I will say this, the rule of no realm is mine, neither of Gondor nor any other, great or small. Why does Gandalf say that? Because Denethor thinks Gandalf wants it. Okay? Denethor says, my rule is Gondor. Gandalf, my rule is nowhere. He doesn't want rule. He doesn't want control. But he then goes on and says, but all worthy things that are in peril as the world now stands, those are my care. And for my part, I shall not wholly fail of my task, though Gondor should perish. That is, guess what, Denethor? If the rest of the world survives and Gondor fails, Gondor dies, then I will have done my job. Denethor's mentality is if the rest of the world burns and Gondor alone lives, so be it. For I also am a steward, Gandalf says. Did you not know? What is Gandalf steward of? Okay, what does to be a steward mean?
Caretaker.
You're a caretaker. You rule in the place of somebody else. Okay? If the other person is gone. So what is Gandalf steward of? Middle Earth. The whole damn thing. North, south, east, west. Everything on the map. Who's he steward for? Is it Iruiluvatar? Is it Manwë, the chief of the Valar? It's not clear. But he's saying, I am in charge of this. I am protecting this for someone else. For an absent Lord, let's say.
Wasn't that role previously Sauron's? Because he was the white? Or was?
No,
Okay.
no. Okay, so back to Denethor torching himself. Gandalf takes Faramir and takes him to the Houses of Healing. 10 minutes. So we get to the Houses of Healing, and Pippin finds Merry, page 859, and he's or bottom of 858, and is essentially like, you should have been brought in too. You should have been treated with some respect and such. Okay? So, pages 862 and following. Yorith, the old woman in the Houses of Healing, just kind of let slip. Too bad we don't have a king nearby, because, as it's been said, the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. Gandalf, I've got just the person. And he sends for Aragorn. Bottom of 862, top of 863, Aragorn comes in. Does he come in with great fanfare, horns a-blowing? In comes Aragorn, son of Arathorn, lord of... No, he comes in as Strider. That is, he's got his old dirty stained cloak on. Okay. What did Aragorn do after he went through the Paths of the Dead? Well, let me rephrase that. What did he do when he went through the Paths of the Dead?
And go to Undead Army.
Okay? He got all the dead who years before, thousands of years before, had sworn an oath in Isildur and then, or Elendil, and broke it. They didn't come to his aid. So they couldn't rest in peace. All right? So you have these hundreds or thousands of dead. And Aragorn goes through, and he goes to the Stone of Eric, and he says, all right, now you can fulfill your oath. And because they've been not at peace for over 1,000 years, they're kind of ready to get some peace. What does he do with them? Go ahead. Go on ahead of me. Wherever they go, what happens to the forces of Sauron? They run away. They flee in fear. So that Aragorn gets to Pelargir, and there's a bunch of boats. What usually flies from the mast of the boats? The flag of Sauron. Think of a Jolly Roger. Okay? Skull and crossbones. And what does Aragorn fly from the chief of the boats? His standard. Okay? The banner of the king of Gondor. So, you get the Riders of the North, Riders of the Rohirrim come down here. And then all the orcs and slaves of Sauron fighting see the Corsairs of Umbar, and initially they think, woohoo, reinforcements, Marines have coming. And then they realize, yeah, it is the Marines, it's the wrong ones. Okay. So Aragorn comes in, and he goes to Faramir first. He gets the Athalas from Yorth, crushes them in water, bathes Faramir's head and stuff, calls Faramir forth, and says, page 866, Faramir says, after Aragorn bathes his forehead and such, my lord, you called me, I come. What does the king command? Notice, Aragorn didn't go, yo, Faramir, wake up, I'm the king, I need you. He just says, essentially, Faramir, wake up, come back. Walk no more in the shadows, but awake, says Aragorn. You are weary, rest a while, take food. Be ready when I return. I will, for who would lie idle when the king has returned? Now, it's not just Aragorn and Faramir. You also have the old lady, Yorith. And she's sitting there tweeting at this very moment, because she goes out from there and she goes, the king has returned. Hands of a healer. Then he goes to Éowyn. How much success does he have bringing Éowyn back? 0, zip, nada. Why? Because she doesn't love Aragorn as much as she loves Éomer. She thinks she loves Aragorn. What does she love about Aragorn?
His valor, his kingliness.
Okay, you're getting really close. She loves the idea of Aragorn, not the real man. What? She doesn't know him at all, but she loves the idea of the future king, the great warrior. It's Éomer who draws her forth. Merry? What does Merry say when he wakes up?
When's lunch?
And I'm hungry. What is the time? And then he says, I also like a pipe. And he remembers Theoden. Nope, don't ever want to smoke a pipe again. Aragorn's like, why not? Because I was going to smoke one with Theoden. Aragorn says, then smoke it in remembrance. And every time you light up, think of Theoden. That is, honor his memory in that way. Okay? So Merry asks, well, you have any on you? Aragorn, he's like, I didn't pass through the dead to bring you weed, man. Okay, the last debate. Got a couple minutes left. We'll just stop there. We'll pick up with the last debate on Thursday. There will be a quiz on Thursday over the